Attention! A story is unfolding right now that is shocking everyone who hears it. It raises a crucial, deeply uncomfortable question about how we treat our oldest and most vulnerable members of society. When romantic love blossoms between a paid caregiver and the elderly person they look after, is it ever truly genuine? Or is there always a hidden, darker interest at play? Today, we discuss an explosive scenario. A younger caregiver claims to have fallen deeply in love with the elderly man she was supposed to simply assist. In response, his family has erupted, throwing a grave accusation of elder abuse and exploitation. What is the actual truth behind this so-called forbidden passion? What drives these complex relationships in the twilight of life? Prepare to unravel a moral dilemma that might change your perspective on loyalty, family dynamics, and true intentions. The epicenter of this family hurricane starts in a quiet, lonely house that time seemed to have forgotten. Let us look closely at the first piece of this puzzle. We have a young professional caregiver. Her primary function was to ensure the daily well-being, safety, and medical routine of an 85-year-old man. She was there to manage his medications, prepare his meals, and help him navigate a house that had become too large for his aging body. Over several months of shared breakfasts, quiet afternoon conversations, and intimate daily routines, this professional relationship began to evolve. It became something much more complex. The caregiver declared that she had fallen in love with the man under her care. This scenario, by its very nature, immediately raises massive red flags and intense questions. It crosses profound ethical boundaries. We have to ask ourselves about the psychological state of a dependent patient. Can a person who relies on you for their basic physical survival ever truly consent to a romantic relationship without a massive power imbalance? As we dive deeper into this tangled web, the reaction of the elderly man's family is exactly what you might expect. It was absolutely explosive. Faced with what they considered a completely unacceptable and predatory situation, his adult children did not hesitate. Their immediate reaction was to march into the house, attempt to fire the caregiver on the spot, and threaten her with severe legal action. The allegation they brought forward was incredibly heavy and legally devastating. They accused her of systemic abuse of a vulnerable person, insinuating that this sudden, passionate romance was nothing more than a carefully constructed facade for far less noble interests. To the children, this young woman wasn't a dedicated professional who had developed a bond with their father. She was a financial predator, executing a calculated long con. This accusation instantly transforms what the caregiver claims is a beautiful love story into a vicious legal and moral conflict, heavily steeped in deep-rooted suspicion, anger, and the terrifying prospect of losing the family fortune. But here is where we must pause the outrage and apply a crucial reflection. A moment of profound wisdom from an outside observer. This situation exposes a very painful and incredibly common pattern in modern society. We must ask, who is actually present in the daily lives of our elderly? The uncomfortable truth in this specific case, and in so many others like it, is that the adult children were largely absent. They were the kind of relatives who only appeared during major holidays, medical emergencies, or when their financial interests were threatened. Meanwhile, the caregiver was the constant figure. She was the one making his tea in the middle of the night, listening to his repetitive stories, and holding his hand during frightening medical appointments when he felt his mortality closing in. This daily reality exposes a massive emotional void left behind by a busy, distracted family. For some, this void can be organically filled by genuine human affection, creating a unique bond between two lonely people regardless of age. But for others, this exact same void is seen as the perfect, dark breeding ground for emotional manipulation, especially with a substantial inheritance waiting. The ultimate discovery, the hard truth we must uncover, is the absolute complexity of the human heart mixed with the cold reality of human greed. The young caregiver's passion for the elderly man when violently confronted by the family's accusation of abuse, exposes an uncomfortable truth. This is not just a story about a forbidden romance. It is a psychological minefield where the lines between professional care, genuine affection, and calculated financial interest are incredibly thin and easily distorted. When the family rushed in to fire her and separate them, we have to ask a very difficult question. Were they acting purely out of a desperate desire to protect their vulnerable, aging father from a manipulator? Or were they equally motivated by the desperate need to protect their own interests and lock down their future inheritance? The real secret here is not just determining whether the love was sincere, but acknowledging whether the inherent vulnerability of the elderly man was being exploited by the young woman making him smile, or by the children waiting for him to pass away. This story forces us to confront the painful reality that very often, those who are physically closest to the elderly hold the greatest power and face the greatest temptation to influence and perhaps manipulate. The brutal truth behind the family's accusation is that, to them, the caregiver's daily presence and emotional closeness represented a direct and terrifying threat to their financial legacy. In this bitter, ugly war, human affection was transformed into a weapon, and the elderly man's vulnerability became a target for both sides, leaving him caught in the crossfire of the people who claimed to love him most. Now, I turn the question over to you, the viewer, because this is a moral debate that has no easy answers and touches families all over the world. What do you truly think about this incredibly delicate situation? Do you believe that genuine romantic love can organically arise in any circumstance, even between a paid younger caregiver and a highly dependent elderly patient? Or do you believe that the inherent vulnerability of an aging person always puts them at a dangerous risk of being exploited, making any romantic relationship in this context fundamentally wrong and abusive? Please leave your honest opinion in the comments below. Share your own experiences if you have seen something similar happen in your own family or community. And let's debate this crucial issue together.